Hello and welcome back to my channel. In case you can't hear it, my voice is weird because I just had a really bad cold. So please bear with me in this video where I'm going to talk about relationships and dating and marriage in the Netherlands versus India. I asked you guys on the YouTube community page which video you wanted to see the most, and this is a top voted video. Before we get into it, make sure to subscribe to my channel and please don't forget to put a thumbs up if you like this video at the end. Without further ado, let's get into it. In case you don't know, I am born in former Yugoslavia. I lived there until I was 8, and then I moved to the Netherlands, and I basically lived most of my life in the Netherlands. I lived there for more than 20 years. There's also a little FAQ down in the description below if you would like to know more about that. But having shifted to India about a year ago and having traveled India since 2015, it is my favorite country in the world. That's why I also am based here now. I previously made 2 other videos where I compare Indian culture with Dutch culture. I've linked those videos down in the description below, but let's get into dating and relationships and marriage. Let's start out with the first phase of relationships and dating and marriage. How do you meet someone? I feel India is very traditional in that way. Most of the Indian people that I have met and talked to have met their partner through their parents. In India, it is very common for parents to search for a suitable marriage candidate for their children. Actually, I don't think there's anything bad about that because it's basically your parents acting like Tinder for you, but in a way more sophisticated way, because obviously your parents raised you, so they know what kind of, partner would be more suitable for you. Other ways to meet someone in India are also, I feel, still quite traditional, maybe through mutual friends in college, or recently getting more and more popular through work, because a lot more young educated Indians are moving into the big cities, and the workplace is becoming definitely a good context for meeting somebody. The Netherlands, however, has changed completely. Obviously, these methods are still there. However, in the Netherlands, your parents would rarely introduce you to your future life partner. It's quite not done for parents to interfere in your relationships. Obviously, sometimes it will happen, but in general, you keep your parents far, far away from your partner or like your dating life until you've met somebody who you actually feel is serious. And serious in this case is a little bit different than in India, because in the Netherlands, when somebody is serious, you're usually thinking about a relationship, a long-term relationship, and not necessarily immediately marriage, which comes way later. Obviously, there are always exceptions, but I'm just talking about the general things that happen. So in the Netherlands, the most common way I feel nowadays to meet someone you would like to date, even hook up with, or have a relationship or get married to, is through dating apps. Obviously, we have Tinder, we have Happen, but there are so many dating apps in the Netherlands right now that you even have very specific dating apps, like dating apps for just highly educated people, or dating apps for Christians, or dating apps for elderly people. A lot of elderly people in the Netherlands are dating and finding new life partners after, for instance, their life partner passed away, or if they got divorced somewhere in life, which is kind of cute. There are even like whole events organized by these dating apps where thousands of single people come to meet somebody. Imagine going to an event where everybody is single and looking for something. I've never been because I was always in a relationship, but I always found it fascinating to hear these stories from my friends. And I actually do know at least 3 couples who found each other online, got into a serious relationship, and eventually got married. Now, moving on to dating. What would a first date look like in the Netherlands, and what would a first date look like in India? Well, I can tell you about Netherlands for sure. In the Netherlands, usually, because you meet somebody through a dating app, maybe even through mutual friends or in the workplace, but I feel nowadays, generally it would be a dating app. You would just go for a coffee or maybe like an afternoon tea, something like that, because you never know what kind of person that is. And a lot of people, they are scared to have to sit through a dinner, which is obviously a longer period of time, and then not liking the person. However, if you do go for a dinner in the Netherlands, be prepared, because going Dutch is invented by Dutch people. You know what I mean? So even as a girl, if you go out on a first date with a guy in the Netherlands, be prepared to sometimes have to split the check, which for me was always non-negotiable. I can't. That for me is like such a turn off. But I know a lot of girls, a lot of very feminist girls, a lot of independent girls who insist on, you know, splitting the bill on a first date. It is very common, and for me, I always did offer at least to split the check, but luckily I always dated men who were like, no, that is not an option. Because for me, that would be like an instant turn off and like the last date. But I did, like, out of courtesy, because I knew that was kind of part of the culture, I did always offer to split the check. In India, a first date, well, that is funny. If you got introduced to your potential future life partner through your family, for instance, your parents found you someone on a marriage site or through mutual friends or through family, actually your first date would be with the whole family around. And I first saw this in Dam Lage Ka Aisha, and I was like mortified because I would die. Like, the whole family from both sides is there. Usually, like, it's the close family, like for instance the parents and the brothers and sisters, and then you meet each other for the first time. Obviously you do get some alone time, and nowadays it's getting more and more modern where parents do introduce the children to each other, but after that you also get a period to meet each other separately without the parents and get to know each other a little bit better before you decide if this is the person who you want to marry. For a Dutch person, this is seriously, they would not understand this at all. Somebody also mentioned in the comments on the community page that if you are, for instance, from a poor background here in India, it would be very hard for you to take somebody out on an all-out romantic date because you don't have that much money. Well, this is also where I feel there's a massive difference between the Netherlands and India. I feel Indians are so much more romantic and all in for the grand gestures. The couple of dates with Indian men that I've been to were, well, the thing is, they were not really dates, because when I meet somebody for the first time, I have to become friends with them before I even consider dating somebody. So even those first initial conversations on Tinder would be suitable for my parents because it's literally so innocent, there's nothing in there. So the couple of dates that I've had were like just meeting someone for coffee or taking a walk in the park, something like that. But I have heard from my Indian girlfriends who were going on dates, like guys renting out a whole restaurant, obviously super rich guys, but those kind of moves, you wouldn't see that in the Netherlands. I definitely feel those grand romantic gestures for a first date are very, very Indian. Moving on to the dating part. So when you actually found somebody who you feel might be a potential life partner. Actually, we have to rewind a little bit because there's something that is super common in the Netherlands and still extremely frowned upon, but becoming more popular in India, and that is the hookup culture. In the Netherlands, I have to say, coming from a Balkan background, which is also very actually traditional and conservative, coming to the Netherlands and seeing how common hookups are was quite shocking for me as well, to be honest. It is so common to go, for instance, to Lowlands, which is like a 3-day festival, and to, like, for girls and guys, sleep with a different person for 3 days straight. It happens, like seriously. It also happens, especially in the big cities, that, you know, girls and guys go out every single week and sleep with somebody else. There is still slut shaming with girls, but it is getting less and less because, you know, feminism, and girls are allowed to do whatever the hell they want to do. Obviously, if you use protection and stuff like that, you should be good. But it's very, very common. Whereas I feel in India, it is definitely coming up more. Let's be real about that. Like I said, people moving into the big cities far away from their parents, it makes it possible for Indians to finally explore the hookup option. I kind of feel strange talking about that in India. It's still a taboo here, like a very big taboo, to be honest. There are shows that are making a difference, like for instance, just recently, 4 More Shots Please. I absolutely love that show. It is kind of like the Sex and the City of India, which I feel gives an extremely different image of real life in India. It definitely doesn't happen like that in real life. What you see in that show is quite good because I think it stirs up controversy and it lets people talk about this taboo. But in real life, Indian culture is still far, far away from this being very normal. From what I've heard from my male and female friends who also tried out dating apps, hookups are common, but it's mostly with divorced people or people who are, for instance, stuck in marriages where they feel they can't get their needs met with their partner, but at the same time, then they're still quite open with their partner. Cheating is also very common here in India. I think India and the Netherlands are quite the same when it comes down to cheating. In the Netherlands more because it's kind of, there's this hookup culture, so people are in general not that difficult about sex. And then in India, I feel people are kind of, you know, discovering that there are options to cheat, like for instance through dating apps, and then they decide to take that road. By the way, if you want to get an impression of the hookup culture in the Netherlands, I would highly recommend you to watch A Tuscan Wedding on Netflix. It is available here in India. I actually watched it here in India. It is a Dutch movie. I can confirm that 80% of that movie is pretty real. So yeah, if I would have to summarize that, hookup culture in the Netherlands, it's there. It's very much daily normal life. In India, it is still a very big taboo, but it is, you know, it's happening more and more because of the dating apps and because more people are getting divorced. But that's something I'm going to discuss at the end when we start discussing divorces. Right now, what if you start dating someone and you want to have a relationship with someone? Well, in the Netherlands, you will, for instance, date for like maybe a month or 2 or 3 before you decide if you want a serious relationship with someone. It is not the US model where you can date somebody for a year and still not be exclusive. That is kind of strange, to be honest. In my eyes, I've always found that model very strange. In the Netherlands, yeah, you will date someone and then decide if you want to be exclusive or not. Obviously, there are always exceptions to that. In India, I feel that people like quite easily very soon decide if they want to be exclusive with someone. Obviously, if you know, if your family introduced you to someone, you're going to be engaged before you even have a relationship. I'm laughing, I'm so sorry, because for a Dutch person still this is, please don't think I'm judging, because I definitely do feel there's a value in arranged marriage, but still I do know that if I would tell this to my Dutch friends, they would be like, what? How is that possible? Anyways, moving on. Also, what I've definitely seen more and more, especially with Indian YouTubers, for instance, is that they will meet somebody in college and be in a relationship, but usually either the parents won't know for years until they are ready to get married, or if the parents do know, then it's kind of assumed that you're going to get married in the end. I think that would kind of be the conclusion of a relationship in India. If you are in a serious relationship, it is assumed that you are going to get married with each other, and that's not gonna last a decade. That's gonna last like maybe 1-2 years in general. Something that is a huge difference in dating between the Netherlands and India is live-in relationships. In the Netherlands, most common thing ever. In the Netherlands, this is actually something that is more of a rule than an exception before you get married. People live together for years. I lived with my ex-boyfriends, with the first one for 4 years and with the second one for 7 years. Basically, it is like a whole marriage. You even have contracts where you have like live-in agreements instead of getting married. It's getting less and less common to get married, to be honest, but that's something I'm going to discuss later. So living relationships, yeah, parents are totally cool with it. Obviously, before you move in with someone, you do introduce them to your parents, because then it is a serious relationship. And yeah, people can live together their whole life and not get married. Even having children without a marriage and a live-in relationship, super common, getting more common every day in the Netherlands. In India, however, massive taboo. Even in the big cities like Mumbai, Delhi, here in Bangalore, people are having so much trouble finding an apartment together if they are not married. Even living on your own in India, especially as a girl, is an issue, even in the big cities. I've heard from my friends in Mumbai that they were having so much trouble with landlords who wouldn't let single girls, you know, live in an apartment alone. However, single guys in an apartment, totally a-okay. It is changing nowadays. Obviously, I was also able to find an apartment as a single girl here in Bangalore, but living together as a couple without being married, oh my goodness. Like, it's even hard to find an apartment because the landlords won't allow it. It's kind of like a moral thing where the old generation feels it's not moral to live in an apartment together as a girl and a guy if you are not married. India is a very community-centered society, so I can kind of imagine that these landlords are thinking like the parents of a girl they haven't even met. Like, oh, I wouldn't want my daughter to live with her boyfriend if I wouldn't know, and I would want the other landlord to deny her, so I'm gonna deny this girl and have her parents back, even if I have never met her parents, something like that. I know one of my friends here in Bangalore, she has been living with her boyfriend for quite a long time, and she is really having trouble finding an apartment to live with her boyfriend. I think it will definitely change in the future, just like the whole hookup culture and, getting married and those kind of things. But right now, even in 2019, it is a massive issue. So in the Netherlands, like I said, you can be in a serious relationship for years, living together with someone, having children. Nobody would ever pressure you to get married, seriously. In India, from the stories that I've heard, it is a massive no-no to have children out of wedlock. If the parents don't agree with the relationship, sometimes people will run off and get married without the permission of the parents, but in general, you do want the permission of your parents, which I feel is not a bad thing, because statistics do show that the involvement of the family in a marriage is a significant factor of keeping the marriage together. So I feel if you do have the support of the parents, which you can also see, for instance, in the Bollywood movie Dum Laga Haisha, a lot less divorces happen. And not just because it's, frowned upon to get a divorce in India, which it still is. I will discuss that separately in a few minutes. But at the same time, I feel, your parents teach you how to walk. They push you through school, even when you absolutely hate it or when you're having trouble with it. So why shouldn't your parents help you through, marital problems or things that you cannot work out with your partner? I feel that is a very good thing here in India, that the parents and the whole family is still quite involved in, how marriage happens, but also how the marriage progresses. Even though I do know a lot of Indian people, it drives them mad, the parents and the family interference in the marriage. But at the same time, if you look at, for instance, the divorce rate in the Netherlands, it is 50%. So let's talk about divorce. In the Netherlands, it is absolutely not common for parents to interfere in the marriage. If you have marital problems, it is custom for you to work it out as a couple. Maybe you will talk with your friends about your marital problems, or read some magazines, or go to a therapist, but it is not common for the parents or the family to get involved into a marriage. Whereas in India, a marriage is definitely something that the whole family and especially the parents are involved in. And there is still a massive taboo on getting divorced in India. So most of the Indian parents definitely will do anything in their power to prevent their children from getting divorced. However, divorce is getting more common in India. I've heard that by now it is 30% of all marriages where people get divorced. Obviously, it is more and more in the big cities. I feel in the villages, it is still an absolute no-go. In the Netherlands, like I said, it's very common. It's 50% of all marriages. And I feel it's kind of a sad thing, because a lot of people get divorced, and when you hear the reasons, you're like, well, maybe you should have gone to a marital counselor first or something before, throwing away a 20-30 year relationship. Even if it's a 5-year relationship, I genuinely feel that there are so many more options to work out your relationship. And I've come to believe that because I see this side of marriage here in India, where people have massive problems. Alcoholism. Obviously, feminism is on the rise, but women definitely have less rights than they do have in the Netherlands. Women want to work and then they're prevented to work. Abuse, women getting beat up and those kind of things. The other way around, obviously, also some women beat their husbands up. When you see people working it out through all of those problems, it gave me 100% a new perspective on how we treat divorce in the Netherlands and how divorce is treated in India. I am more on the Indian side of things. If I look at the problems that people have been able to work through, and then, they completely rediscover their marriage. I feel that is such a beautiful thing. You know, you have that history together, and obviously if there are children involved, it will be usually better for the children for if the parents stay together. So divorce, yes, it is happening more and more in India, but it's still a massive taboo. And I don't think that is a bad thing, because if I look at Dutch society and how easily people sometimes give up on decades-long relationships, I feel it's better to have a little bit more of a cap on divorce like we have in India. I think by now you should have a global view on the differences between the Netherlands and India in terms of relationships and dating, marriage, divorce. If you have any questions, whether you're Dutch and you don't understand some things from Indian society, or maybe if you're Indian and you don't understand some things from Dutch society, please, you know, write them down in the comments below. I have viewers from all over the world and they might be able to answer your question. Obviously, whenever I can, I will be able to answer questions, and maybe I can make a follow-up video with the other questions as well. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more of my videos, and put a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!